The message came at 0347 hours, Earth Standard Time. It was supposed to be a routine check-in from New Hope, one of humanity's newest colony worlds. Instead, there was only silence. Dead. Empty silence that made the comm officer's hands shake as she tried again and again to raise someone. Anyone on that distant world. Sarah Chen stood in the emergency council room, her face pale but composed. She had been Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council for 6 years now. 6 years of careful diplomacy, of playing by rules that sometimes made no sense, of watching her words and actions so humanity would be seen as civilized and trustworthy. 6 years of building bridges with alien species who had thousands of years of history before humans even learned to make fire. Now she watched the screen showing what remained of New Hope. The first survey team had arrived 12 hours after the silence began. What they found was not a technical failure or a natural disaster. It was murder. Systematic, deliberate murder on a scale that made even hardened soldiers vomit in their helmets. 4,200,000 people. Men, women, children, elderly, infants, all dead. The buildings were still standing. The power still worked. The streets were clean. But every single human being had been killed, their bodies left where they fell. As if whoever did this wanted to make absolutely certain everyone saw their work. Admiral Marcus Webb stood beside Sarah, his jaw tight enough to crack teeth. He was a big man, gray-haired and steady, the kind of officer who inspired confidence just by walking into a room. Right now he looked like he wanted to tear something apart with his bare hands. "We have confirmation," he said quietly. Krev hegemony ships were detected leaving the system 6 hours before we lost contact. Energy signatures matched their military vessels. "We also have this." He played a recording. It was from New Hope's planetary defense network, its final transmission before it was destroyed. The video showed Krev soldiers, their chitinous armor gleaming, moving through a residential area. They were not fighting. There was no battle. They were executing people who tried to run. Families, children holding toys. The Krev soldiers were efficient and unhurried, as if they were doing routine maintenance. Sarah closed her eyes for just a moment. When she opened them again, they were hard as diamond. "Get President Okonkwo on the line," she said, "and prep the diplomatic shuttle. I'm calling an emergency session of the Galactic Council." The Galactic Council chambers were ancient beyond human comprehension. The station that housed them had been built by the eldest ones, a species that had disappeared into ascension or extinction thousands of years before. Now it served as neutral ground where hundreds of species gathered to discuss trade, resolve disputes, and maintain what they called galactic civilization. Sarah walked through corridors lined with representatives from across the galaxy. The insectoid Extithar, who breathed methane and lived in sealed suits. The massive Bronthi, gentle herbivores who stood 4 meters tall. The crystalline Vel who communicated through light pulses. So many different forms of life, all gathered here under the promise that reason and law would prevail over violence and chaos. She had believed in that promise once. The council chamber itself was a massive sphere where delegates floated in carefully controlled gravity fields, arranged so everyone could see everyone else. Sarah took humanity's position, one spot among 347 member species. Not a bad seat for a race that had only joined 73 years ago. Not a powerful seat either. The speaker, a elderly Bronthi named Kulm, opened the session with the traditional greeting. Sarah did not wait for the usual procedural delays. "I invoke Emergency Protocol 7, she said, her voice clear and cold. "Genocide. I present evidence of species-wide genocide committed against human civilians." The chamber erupted in clicks, whistles, hums, and other sounds of surprise. Emergency Protocol 7 had not been invoked in over 400 years. It meant everything else stopped. It meant evidence must be heard immediately. Sarah presented it all. The surveillance footage, the energy signatures, the bodies. 4,200,000 bodies. She showed them children. She showed them hospitals where patients had been killed in their beds. She showed them schools. When she finished, the chamber was silent. Then the Krev delegate spoke. His name was Zachris, and he was a high commander in their military. The Krev looked like a cross between a bear and a lizard, with thick scales and powerful muscles. They were strong, aggressive, and had a reputation for pushing boundaries. "The hegemony denies these accusations," Zachris said calmly. "We had ships in that region, yes. We were conducting routine patrols of space we claim as traditionally Krev. If humans chose to place a colony in disputed territory, that is their foolishness. What happened to them is tragic, but we had no involvement. Sarah felt something cold settle in her chest. She had expected denial. What shocked her was how easily the lie came, how little Zachris seemed to care. The evidence is clear, she said. Evidence can be manufactured, Zachris replied with a dismissive gesture. Humans are young and emotional. Perhaps this is an attempt to gain sympathy or territory through deception. The council began to debate. Some species expressed sympathy for humanity, others worried about jumping to conclusions. The Krev had allies, species they traded with or who owed them favors. Slowly, carefully, the tone shifted from horror at the crime to caution about proper procedure. Sarah watched it happen. She'd seen it before in smaller matters. The council was good at expressing concern. It was less good at doing anything about it. 3 days of debate followed. Sarah presented more evidence. The Krev denied everything. Finally, the council voted. The Krev hegemony would receive economic sanctions. Some of their trading privileges would be suspended for 2 years. They would be issued a formal reprimand. And the matter would be referred to a committee to study whether stricter protocols were needed for colonial claims in disputed space. Sarah stood in her place as the vote was announced. She looked around the chamber at all these species, all these civilizations. She wondered how many of them had suffered like New Hope had. She wondered how many times this council had expressed concern and done nothing. President Amara Okonkwo appeared on Sarah's private screen. The president was a small woman with iron in her spine and fire in her eyes. She had led Earth through first contact, through integration into galactic society, through a dozen crises. Now she looked tired beyond measure. Sarah, she said quietly. You have your orders, Sarah nodded. She stood and requested permission to address the council one final time. Speaker Culm, looking uncomfortable, granted it. Humanity thanks the council for its time, Sarah said. Her voice was perfectly calm, perfectly polite. We have heard your decision. Economic sanctions, a reprimand, for the murder of 4 million people, for genocide, she paused. Every eye, sensor, and optical organ in the chamber focused on her. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Accords. We withdraw from all treaties, all agreements, all protocols established by this council. We will no longer be bound by laws that do not protect us. We will no longer play by rules that mean nothing. The chamber exploded in shocked noise. Sarah spoke over it, her voice cutting through the chaos. You have mistaken our civility for weakness. You have mistaken our patience for cowardice. You thought because we tried to follow your rules, because we sought peace, because we extended our hand in friendship, that we were harmless. She looked directly at Zachris. That ends today. The Krev hegemony has declared war on humanity, whether they admit it or not. We accept that war, and we will show you what humans really are when you take everything from us. Sarah turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the council descended into chaos. Ahead of her, Admiral Webb was waiting with Earth's entire military fleet. The age of humanity playing civilized was over. Admiral Marcus Webb stood in the command center of the UESS Defiance, humanity's largest warship. Around him, dozens of officers worked at their stations, their faces grim and focused. Outside the armored hull, 312 other ships hung in space, waiting for his orders. This was not Earth's entire fleet. Not even close. Webb pulled up a holographic display showing human territory. To anyone else, it looked simple. Earth, Mars, the outer colonies, maybe 40 worlds total. Small compared to species like the Krev, who held 50 star systems. Weak compared to the ancient empires that controlled hundreds of planets. That was the lie humanity had been telling for 70 years. The careful, deliberate lie that had kept them safe while they prepared. Colonel Okafor, Webb said. Show them. Dr. James Okafor stepped forward. He was a thin man with dark skin and tired eyes. He had been the head of Earth's weapons development program for 20 years. Most of that time had been spent on projects that officially did not exist. Lights, Okafor said, and the room darkened. New images appeared in the holographic display. What I'm about to show you is classified at the highest level. Until today, only 70 people in the entire human government knew the full scope of this program. The first image showed a massive shipyard, hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid in a system no one ever visited. Ships were being built there. Lots of ships. Big ones, Project Damocles, Okafor said quietly. We began this 3 years after first contact. The Galactic Council had rules about military buildup. Rules about weapons development. Rules about what species were allowed to build and where. We signed those treaties. We followed those rules publicly. More images appeared. Weapons testing ranges hidden in the vast empty spaces between stars. Research stations disguised as mining operations. Entire factories built underground on lifeless moons. We built everything they said we couldn't, Okafor continued. Kinetic kill vehicles that can punch through any known shield system. Missiles with AI guidance smart enough to think for themselves. Fusion bombs pumped through X-ray lasers. Relativistic weapons that turn chunks of matter into planet killers. A young officer in the back of the room raised her hand. Lieutenant Rebecca Torres had been on the first survey ship to reach New Hope. She had seen the bodies. Her voice shook when she spoke. Why? She asked. If we had all this, why did we hide it? Why did we let them think we were weak? Webb answered that one himself. Because once you show your weapons, everyone knows what to defend against. Because once you prove you're dangerous, everyone treats you like a threat. We wanted time. Time to build. Time to prepare. Time to learn everything we could about galactic technology and find its weaknesses. He pulled up another display, this one showing Krev military installations, and because we hoped we would never need it. We hoped the Council's laws meant something. We hoped civilization was real. Okafor took over again. The Krev think they know our capabilities. They've seen our defense fleet. They've watched our military exercises. They think we have maybe 500 combat-capable ships. They think our weapons are adequate, but nothing special. They think we're soft because we follow rules and try to talk first. He smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. They're about to learn the truth. Earth's actual military consists of 2,347 warships. We have automated defense networks around every human world that can track and destroy anything that gets close. We have weapons platforms hidden throughout our territory. And we've been studying Krev biology, Krev technology, Krev tactics for the entire time we've known them. The room was silent. Even the officers who knew some of this did not know all of it. The scale of the deception was stunning. What are our orders, sir? Torres asked quietly. Webb looked at her. He looked at all of them. These were good people. They had signed up to defend humanity, yes, but they had also believed in the dream of galactic peace. They had thought civilization meant something. Total war, he said simply. The Krev hegemony has 50 star systems, approximately 2 billion citizens. They're one of the mid-tier military powers in the galaxy. They have a standing fleet of about 3,000 ships and good defensive networks. He pulled up operational plans that had been prepared years ago, but never implemented. Plans with names like Ragnarok, Hellstorm, Avalanche. Plans that assumed humanity would someday face an enemy that could not be reasoned with. We are going to dismantle the Krev military machine, not defeat it, not push it back. Dismantle it, every shipyard, every weapons platform, every military installation. We are going to do it fast, we are going to do it efficiently, and we are not going to stop until they have no ability to threaten anyone ever again. What about civilian casualties? Another officer asked. We are not targeting civilians, Webb said firmly. Let me be absolutely clear about that. We are not the Krev. We do not murder the helpless. But we are also not risking human lives to be more careful than necessary. Military targets only, but we're not going to hold back. If they put military installations near civilian areas, we will warn the civilians to evacuate and then we will destroy those installations. He looked around the room. Are we clear? This is not a police action. This is not a peacekeeping mission. This is war. Some of you are going to see things that will haunt you. Some of you are going to do things you never imagined you would do. But remember what they did to New Hope. Remember that the Council would not stop them. Remember that if we don't do this, the next 4 million bodies will be human too. Torres spoke again, her voice steadier now. When do we start, sir? We already have, Webb said. He pulled up a tactical display showing Krev space. Multiple red indicators were flashing. Battle Group 7 engaged Krev Military Station Omega 4 minutes ago. Station is gone. No survivors from their garrison. Some lifeboats were allowed to escape to tell others what happened. More red indicators appeared across the display. Human fleets were coming out of hiding, appearing in Krev space, striking at targets that had been selected months or years ago. We're hitting 23 different locations simultaneously, Webb explained. Shipyards, weapons depots, fleet bases, communications hubs. Everything that lets them wage war. The Krev are about to wake up and discover their military is being taken apart piece by piece. He turned to his communications officer. Send the message to all Krev military installations. Standard surrender terms. Lay down your weapons. Power down your shields and transmit your locations. You will be taken prisoner and treated according to Galactic Convention on Prisoners of War. Refuse and you will be destroyed without further warning. Message sent, sir, the officer replied. No responses yet. Webb had not expected any. The Krev were proud. They were warriors. They would not believe humanity was serious until they saw the proof. That proof was about to arrive. Across Krev space, human warships appeared like nightmares made real. They did not hail. They did not negotiate. They identified military targets and they destroyed them with weapons the Krev had never seen before and could not defend against. A Krev battleship, one of their newest and most powerful vessels, found itself facing 3 human destroyers. The Krev captain laughed and ordered his ship to attack. 30 seconds later, the battleship was a cloud of debris. The human ships had not even slowed down. High Commander Zachris, the same one who had denied responsibility at the council, was in his office on the Krev homeworld when the reports started coming in. At first, he dismissed them as panic or exaggeration. Humans were traitors and diplomats, not warriors. They were weak. They played by rules. Then he saw the footage. Human ships moved with precision that suggested AI assistance far beyond what should have been legal. Their weapons hit with force that indicated they had been developing military technology in secret for decades. Their tactics were ruthless and efficient. Zachris felt something cold in his stomach, something that might have been fear. He opened a communication channel to the nearest human ship and prepared to demand they cease this attack immediately. Before he could speak, the human admiral's face appeared on his screen. "This is Admiral Webb of the United Earth Space Service," the human said calmly. "You have murdered 4 million human civilians. You have committed genocide. The Galactic Council has declined to punish this crime, so we will." "You cannot win," Zachris said, trying to sound confident. "We have 50 worlds, thousands of ships, billions of people. You are one small species with delusions of importance." Webb smiled. It was terrifying. "You're going to find out just how wrong you are," he said. "This is not a war you can win. This is not even a war you can survive. You should have thought of that before you killed our children." The transmission ended. All across Krev space, the storm began to break. The first week was chaos for the Krev hegemony. Human fleets appeared everywhere at once, striking at military targets with precision that seemed impossible. Shipyards that had taken decades to build were destroyed in minutes. Weapons platforms that were supposed to be invincible were torn apart by missiles they could not track or stop. Fleets that went out to engage the humans found themselves outmaneuvered and outgunned by ships that should not have existed. Drath was a soldier in the Krev ground forces, stationed on one of their industrial worlds called Mokhtar. He had been a soldier for 12 years and had seen combat before. He thought he understood war. He thought he knew what humans were capable of. He was wrong. The attack on Mokhtar came at dawn. The first warning was when the orbital defense platforms simply stopped responding. Then the sky lit up with streaks of light as human kinetic weapons fell from orbit. They were not random. Each one hit a military target with perfect accuracy. The barracks 3 kilometers from where Drath was stationed vanished in a flash of light and thunder. Drath ran for his combat armor, his heart's pounding. Around him, other soldiers were doing the same, some panicking, some calm, all confused. No one had expected this. No one thought the humans would actually attack the hegemony. By the time Drath got his armor sealed and his weapon charged, the bombardment from orbit had stopped. The humans had destroyed every military installation on the planet in less than 10 minutes. Now their ship sat in orbit, broadcasting a message on all frequencies. "Krev military personnel on Mokhtar, this is the United Earth Space Service. Your orbital defenses are destroyed. Your command structure is eliminated. Your weapons depots are gone. You cannot fight and you cannot escape. Surrender now and you will be treated with respect as prisoners of war. Attempt to resist and you will be destroyed. You have 1 hour to decide." Drath looked at his commanding officer, a veteran named Krall who had served for 30 years. Krall's face was hard to read behind his helmet, but his voice was steady when he spoke. "What do we do, sir?" Drath asked. Krall was quiet for a long moment. Then he unsealed his helmet and looked at the younger soldiers around him. "We were told humans were weak, that they were soft, that they would never fight back even when provoked. Does this look weak to you?" No one answered. "The hegemony made a mistake," Krall said quietly. "A terrible mistake. And now we're paying for it. I'm not going to order you to die for the pride of leaders who lied to us about what we were facing. I'm surrendering. Anyone who wants to join me can. Anyone who wants to fight can try." But understand this. Those humans up there can drop rocks from orbit until there's nothing left alive on this planet. They've shown they have the ability, and apparently they have the will. Drath thought about that. He thought about the reports coming in from other worlds. He thought about how quickly their defenses had fallen. Most of all, he thought about the message his unit had received before all this started. The intelligence briefing that said humans had destroyed something called New Hope. 4 million civilians. All dead, killed by Krev forces. Drath felt sick. He had not known. Most soldiers had not known. They were told it was a military operation, a necessary strike against human expansion. No one had said anything about civilians, about children. "I'll surrender with you, sir," Drath said. Most of the unit agreed. A few did not. Those few took defensive positions and prepared to fight. The humans gave them exactly 1 hour as promised. Then the orbital strikes resumed, precise and devastating, taking out only the positions where Krev soldiers still held weapons. It was over in seconds. Drath and the others who surrendered were collected by human shuttles. They expected to be executed or tortured. Instead, they were processed efficiently, given medical care and placed in holding facilities that were uncomfortable but not cruel. The humans treated them exactly as they had promised, as prisoners of war. It was more mercy than New Hope had received. While Mokhtar fell, the same scene played out on 17 other Krev industrial worlds. The humans were not interested in conquering territory. They were not trying to occupy planets. They were systematically destroying the Krev ability to make war. On the Krev homeworld, High Commander Zakris watched his empire crumble. In 2 weeks, the hegemony had lost 30% of its military shipbuilding capacity, 50% of its weapons manufacturing, and over 1,000 ships. And the humans were not slowing down. Worse, they were broadcasting everything. Every battle was recorded. Every Krev military asset destroyed was documented. Every surrender was shown. The humans wanted the galaxy to see what was happening, and the galaxy was watching. In the Galactic Council chambers, Speaker Kulm called an emergency session. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to discuss the human assault on the Krev hegemony. Some were horrified. Some were quietly pleased. Many were terrified. Ambassador Sarah Chen attended, though humanity was no longer a member of the council. She stood in the human space and waited as various species debated what to do about the situation. The Vel delegate, a crystalline being that communicated through light pulses, was one of the first to speak. "The humans must be stopped. This level of violence cannot be tolerated. They are destroying an entire civilization." Sarah's response was cold and immediate. "We are destroying a military. The Krev civilian population has not been touched. No civilian infrastructure has been targeted. No innocent lives have been taken. We are doing exactly what the Council should have done. We are ensuring the Krev hegemony can never commit genocide again." "But the scale," the Vel protested. "The weapons you are using. The tactics. These are violations of dozens of galactic treaties. Treaties we are no longer bound by," Sarah reminded them. "Treaties we left because they did not protect our people. You want to talk about violations? Let's talk about New Hope. Let's talk about 4 million dead. Let's talk about how this council responded with sanctions and stern words." A Bronthi delegate, a species known for their pacifism, spoke next. His name was Torm and his voice was sad. "We understand your anger, Ambassador Chen. We understand your pain. But this path leads only to more suffering. Already there are reports of thousands of Krev military personnel killed. How many more must die?" Sarah looked at Torm. She liked the Bronthi. They were genuinely peaceful, genuinely kind, but they had never faced what humanity had faced. "How many Krev soldiers died attacking our colony?" she asked quietly. "None, because we did not fight back. We could not fight back. They came to a peaceful world and murdered everyone they found. So I will ask you, Torm, how many humans should die before we are allowed to defend ourselves? How many colonies must be destroyed? How many children must be killed before it becomes acceptable for us to say no more?" Torm had no answer. Then Zakris himself appeared on the council channel, transmitting from the Krev homeworld. His face was drawn and exhausted. "The hegemony formally requests council intervention. The humans are out of control. They are using illegal weapons and tactics. They must be stopped before they destroy us completely." Sarah almost laughed. "Now you want the council's help. Now you want galactic law to mean something. Where were you when we begged for justice? Where was this concern when you denied murdering our people? We may have been wrong, Zachris said, and the admission clearly hurt him. Perhaps our forces did engage in excessive actions at New Hope. But this response is not proportional. You are destroying our entire military for the actions of one battle group. One battle group that murdered 4 million people, Sarah said. And you still call it excessive actions. You still cannot even say the word genocide. That is why we are doing this, because you will never take responsibility, because the Council will never make you. So we will. Another species spoke up, one of the Krev's allies, a predatory race called the Zesh. Their delegate hissed in anger. The Zesh will not stand by and watch an ally destroyed. We demand the humans cease their attack immediately or face consequences. Every human heart in the Council chamber stopped. This was the moment they had been waiting for and dreading. Would other species join the Krev? Would this turn into a larger war? Sarah looked directly at the Zesh delegate. Her voice was perfectly calm, but everyone there could hear the steel underneath. Let me be very clear. Any species that aids the Krev hegemony militarily will be considered hostile to humanity. Any ships that join their fleets will be destroyed. Any weapons you provide will be tracked to their source, and those facilities will be eliminated. This is not a threat. This is a statement of fact. You cannot fight the entire galaxy, the Zesh delegate snarled. We will not have to, Sarah said, because most species in this council are smart enough to understand what is happening. The Krev committed genocide. They were not punished. We are punishing them. Unless you want to defend genocide, I suggest you stay out of our way. The Zesh delegate started to respond, but then stopped, because behind Sarah's image, tactical displays appeared showing human ships. Thousands of them. Ships that were not supposed to exist, weapons platforms, defense networks, the full scale of humanity's hidden military, revealed for all to see. This is what we built while you all thought we were harmless, Sarah said quietly. This is what we prepared while following your rules and hoping we would never need it. We can reach any system in the galaxy within a week. 57 days after New Hope went silent, the human fleet arrived at the Krev homeworld. It was not a subtle approach. Every ship in the system could see them coming. 300 warships moving in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready. They did not hide. They did not rush. They simply came, inevitable as a sunrise. On the surface, in the capital city of Kreftol, the government met in emergency session. The High Council chamber was filled with the most powerful members of the hegemony, military commanders, political leaders, economic ministers, all of them trying to figure out how their mighty empire had fallen so far so fast. High Commander Zachris stood before them, his scales dulled by exhaustion and stress. In less than 2 months, the Krev military had been reduced from one of the galaxy's significant powers to a shadow of itself. 70% of their shipyards were gone. Most of their weapons manufacturing was destroyed. Over 2,000 ships had been eliminated, and now the humans were here at the homeworld itself, the heart of everything. We must surrender, Zachris said. The words tasted like poison, but there was no alternative left. We cannot fight them. We cannot win. Every time we try, we lose. They are stronger than we ever imagined. They are smarter than we gave them credit for, and they are not going to stop until we have nothing left. One of the council members, an old warrior named Thex, snarled in rage. You want us to bow to these soft-skinned mammals? To admit weakness before the galaxy? I want us to survive, Zachris shot back. Pride is not worth extinction. They have shown they can destroy us, but they have also shown they are not targeting our civilians. They are not burning our cities. They are not doing to us what we did to them. That means there is still hope for negotiation. Another council member spoke up, a political leader named Sarex. What will they demand? What price will they ask for peace? Zachris had been thinking about that for weeks. He had studied the humans, read everything he could find about their history, their culture, their values. What he learned terrified him more than their weapons, I think, he said slowly. They will demand justice. The council debated for hours, but in the end there was no real choice. The surrender offer was transmitted to the human fleet. Unconditional surrender, complete cessation of hostilities. A request for peace talks. Admiral Webb received the message aboard the Defiance. He read it carefully, then forwarded it to Earth for approval. The response came back within an hour, signed by President Okonkwo herself. Accept the surrender. But make the terms clear. Webb opened a channel to the Krev homeworld. His face appeared on every screen in the capital city, broadcasting to millions of Krev citizens. When he spoke, his voice was firm but not cruel. The United Earth Space Service accepts the Krev hegemony's surrender. Effective immediately, all Krev military forces will stand down. All ships will return to designated ports and power down their weapons. All remaining military installations will open their files and provide full access to human inspection teams. He paused, letting that sink in. However, this is not the end. This is the beginning of justice. Every member of the Krev military who participated in the attack on New Hope will be identified. Every officer who gave orders, every soldier who pulled a trigger, every ship captain who transported the assault forces, all of them will face trial for war crimes. On the surface, Zachris felt his blood run cold. He had hoped the humans would want territory or resources or political concessions. Those things could be negotiated. This was different. Webb continued. We will establish tribunals. The trials will be public. The evidence will be presented. Anyone found guilty of participating in genocide will be punished according to galactic law. Anyone found innocent will be released, but there will be accounting. There will be justice, and there will be no exceptions. Across Krev space, thousands of military officers and soldiers began to panic. Some tried to run. Some tried to hide. Some tried to erase records or destroy evidence. It did not matter. The humans had been collecting data since the moment the war started. Every ship movement, every communication, every order given. They knew who was at New Hope. They knew who gave the commands. They knew everything. The roundup began immediately. Human Marines, working with Krev civilians who were horrified by what their military had done, started making arrests. It was methodical and thorough. No one escaped. No one got away. Lieutenant Rebecca Torres was part of an arrest team sent to pick up a Krev captain named Drex. He had commanded one of the troop transports at New Hope. According to the records, his ship had delivered 3 battalions of soldiers to the colony surface. Those soldiers had killed 14,000 people in the first day. Torres found Drex in his home, surrounded by his family. His mate, his children. They looked terrified. Drex himself stood in front of them, protecting them with his body. Please, he said. I was following orders. I did not know what they were planning. I just flew the ship. I just did my duty. Torres looked at him. She had seen the bodies at New Hope. She had seen children who would never grow up. She had nightmares about it every time she closed her eyes, but she was not like Drex. She was not going to hurt innocents. Your family is not under arrest, she said quietly. Only you will come with us. You will face trial. If you are innocent as you claim, then you will be able to prove it. That is more chance than you gave the people of New Hope. Drex looked at his children one last time, then walked forward with his hands out. Torres put restraints on him, careful to not make them too tight. She was angry, yes. She wanted justice, yes. But she was still human. She would not become a monster to fight monsters. The arrests took weeks. The trials took months. The galaxy watched it all, broadcast on every major channel. The humans presented their evidence methodically and carefully. Ship logs, communication records, testimony from survivors of other Krev actions, medical analysis of the bodies at New Hope, showing they had been killed by Krev weapons. Some Krev were found innocent. They had been in the system, but had not participated in the killings. They had been ordered to do things but had refused. They had tried to stop what was happening but had been overruled. These Krev were released, their names cleared. Others were not so fortunate. The evidence against them was overwhelming. They had killed civilians. They had burned homes with families inside. They had executed prisoners. They had done all of this under orders, yes, but the humans did not accept that as an excuse. Following orders is not a defense for murder, the human judges said over and over. You had a choice. You could have refused. You could have reported it. You could have warned the victims. You did none of these things. Therefore, you are guilty. The sentences varied. Some Krev received prison time. Some received life sentences. A few, the worst ones, the ones who had personally killed children or who had planned the entire operation, received execution sentences. Those executions were carried out quickly and humanely, more mercy than they had shown their victims. Meanwhile, human forces remained in Krev space, not as invaders but as occupiers. Their mission was simple: prevent the Krev military from ever rebuilding to the point where they could threaten anyone again. Admiral Webb established a headquarters on one of the Krev colony worlds. He worked with local Krev civilian leaders who wanted peace and who were ashamed of what their military had become. Together they began the process of demilitarization. Shipyards were converted to civilian use or dismantled. Weapons factories were shut down or repurposed. The Krev fleet was reduced to a small number of ships for system defense only, with human observers on every vessel. It was thorough and it was permanent. Drath, the soldier who had surrendered on Mokhtar, was interviewed by human reporters. They asked him what he thought of the occupation. "I think," he said carefully, "that we brought this on ourselves. I did not know about New Hope when it happened. But I should have. We all should have. We let our leaders become too proud, too aggressive. We believed we were strong enough to do whatever we wanted. The humans taught us we were wrong." The reporter pressed him. "Do you hate them for what they did to your empire?" Drath was quiet for a long moment. "I hate what they did to our military. I hate that we lost. But I cannot hate them for seeking justice. If someone killed 4 million humans, what should humanity have done? Accepted it? Moved on? No. They did what they had to do. We are the ones who committed genocide. They are the ones who stopped us. History will remember which side was right." Across the galaxy, species watched the occupation of Krev space. They watched the trials. They watched human forces maintaining order without brutality, seeking justice without revenge, and they learned something important. Humanity was not cruel, but humanity was also not weak. And if you pushed them too far, if you hurt them too badly, they would respond with a force that could break empires. 3 species that had been planning their own aggressive expansions quietly canceled those plans. 2 pirate groups that had been raiding neutral shipping disbanded. A dozen conflicts that might have escalated suddenly found peaceful resolutions as both sides decided that, maybe. 6 months after the last shots were fired in the Krev War, Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before the Galactic Council once more. This time she was not there as a supplicant asking for justice. She was there as the representative of a power that had proven itself capable of enforcing justice on its own terms. The council chamber looked the same as always, with representatives from hundreds of species floating in their designated positions, but the atmosphere had changed. When Sarah spoke, species listened with an attention and respect they had never shown before. "Humanity wishes to rejoin the Galactic Council," she announced, "but under different terms than before." Speaker Colm shifted uncomfortably in his position. The old Bronthi had aged noticeably over the past months. The stress of watching the entire galactic order shift had taken its toll. "What terms do you propose, Ambassador?" he asked carefully. Sarah brought up a holographic display showing what humanity was now calling the New Hope Protocol. It was simple and direct. Any species that committed genocide against civilian populations would face immediate military intervention from humanity and its allies. No debate, no committee reviews, no economic sanctions. Real immediate consequences. "We are willing to follow most of the Council's rules again," Sarah explained. "We will respect trade agreements. We will engage in diplomatic processes. We will participate in cultural exchanges and scientific cooperation. But this one thing is not negotiable. Genocide will not be tolerated. Not against humans. Not against anyone." A Vel representative, the same crystalline being who had protested the attack on the Krev, flickered with agitated light pulses. "You are asking for the authority to wage war whenever you decide a genocide has occurred. That is too much power for one species, is it?" Sarah asked calmly. "Tell me, how many genocides has this council successfully prevented in the last 1,000 years? How many times have you actually stopped a species from murdering civilians?" The chamber was silent. Everyone knew the answer. The council was very good at expressing concern after atrocities happened. It was less successful at preventing them or punishing those responsible. "We are not asking for permission," Sarah continued. "We are informing you of our policy. You can accept it and work with us, or you can reject it and watch us enforce it anyway. The choice is yours, but understand this. Humanity will never again sit by while innocents are murdered and councils debate proper procedure." A new voice spoke up. It was Xylorth, a member of a peaceful species called the Scythan. They were philosophers and mediators, known throughout the galaxy for their wisdom. Xylorth's voice was gentle but thoughtful. "What you propose is vigilante justice," Xylorth said. "It bypasses all the systems we have built over millennia to ensure fairness and prevent abuse of power. How do we know humanity will not use this authority incorrectly? How do we know you will not become the very thing you fought against?" Sarah had expected this question. She had asked it herself late at night when the weight of what humanity had done pressed down on her conscience. "You cannot know," she admitted, "not with certainty. But you can look at what we did to the Krev. We destroyed their military. We held trials. We punished the guilty and released the innocent. We did not burn their cities. We did not target their civilians. We did not do to them what they did to us. We sought justice, not revenge. She paused, letting that sink in. And we are putting safeguards in place. The New Hope Protocol requires multiple confirmations before action is taken. Evidence must be presented. Intent must be proven. We are not going to start wars over accidents or misunderstandings. But when genocide is clear, when the evidence is undeniable, we will act. Because someone must. Over the next week, the council debated. Arguments went back and forth. Some species wanted to reject humanity's terms entirely. Others wanted to accept them, but add restrictions and oversight. A few wanted to grant humanity even more authority to maintain order. In the end, a compromise was reached. Humanity would rejoin the council with its New Hope Protocol intact. But a special oversight committee would be established, composed of neutral species, to review any military actions humanity took under the protocol. If humanity was found to have acted inappropriately or excessively, there would be consequences. Sarah accepted the terms. Not because humanity needed the council's approval, but because she genuinely wanted accountability. She knew the danger of unchecked power. She knew how easy it would be to slip from justice into tyranny. The oversight committee was not perfect, but it was something. Far from the council chambers in Krev space, life was slowly returning to normal. Admiral Webb walked through the streets of Kreftol, the capital city, accompanied by only 2 guards. 6 months ago, such a thing would have been suicide. Now Krev civilians nodded to him respectfully as he passed. He was meeting with the new Krev civilian government, a group of leaders who had pushed for peace and reform even before the war. They were trying to rebuild their society, to figure out what the Krev hegemony would become now that its military might was gone. The meeting took place in a simple office building, not the grand war chambers where the old High Council used to meet. The new leaders sat across from Webb at a plain table. There was no posturing, no displays of dominance, just tired people trying to do their best. Admiral, one of them said, a middle-aged Krev named Sela. Our people want to know when your forces will leave, not because we want you gone, but because they need to know what the future looks like. Webb had been thinking about that question for months. We will maintain a presence here for at least 5 years, he said honestly. Maybe longer. Our job is to ensure your military never again becomes a threat to anyone. That takes time. But we are not conquerors. We do not want to rule you. As soon as we are confident you have established stable civilian control and safeguards against military abuse, we will reduce our presence. Another Krev leader, an elderly male named Cortax, spoke up. And what if some of our people decide they want the old ways back? What if they try to rebuild the military in secret? Then we will stop them, Webb said simply. But we hope your own people will stop them first. The old ways led to genocide. They led to war with a species you underestimated. They nearly led to your extinction. Surely you can build something better? Sela nodded slowly. We are trying. But it is difficult. Many Krev are ashamed of what we did. Others are angry that we lost. Some cannot accept that we were wrong. How do we reconcile all of that? Webb thought about his own doubts, his own struggles with what humanity had done. By being honest, he said. By acknowledging the truth. By teaching your children what really happened and why it was wrong. It will take generations. But the alternative is repeating the same mistakes. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, humanity's hidden military capabilities were becoming common knowledge. The secret shipyards, the advanced weapons, the defense networks that could reach any system. Some species found this disturbing, others found it reassuring. Lieutenant Rebecca Torres had been promoted to captain and given command of one of the patrol groups that now moved through galactic space. Her job was to watch for signs of atrocities and respond if necessary. It was exhausting work, emotionally draining, but she believed in it. One day her ship received a distress call from a small, peaceful species called the Miri. They were being raided by pirates and their defenses were inadequate. Torres diverted her ship immediately. When she arrived, the pirates were in the middle of attacking a Miri colony. They had already killed dozens of civilians and were demanding the rest surrender valuable resources. The moment Torres's ship appeared on sensors, the pirates fled. They did not even try to fight. They just ran. The Miri were grateful but also frightened. They had heard stories about human warships, about the destruction of the Krev. They were not sure what to expect. Torres and her crew helped repair the damaged colony. They provided medical aid to the injured. They stayed for 3 days to make sure the pirates did not return. And when they left, the Miri leader thanked them with tears in her eyes. "We thought the galaxy was a place where the strong did whatever they wanted," she said, "where species like us just had to accept being victims. But you proved that wrong. You showed that there can be consequences for cruelty." "Thank you." Torres felt something ease in her chest, a small piece of the weight she had been carrying. Maybe they had become monsters to fight monsters. Maybe they had crossed lines that should not be crossed. But they had also saved lives. They had given hope to species that had none. That had to count for something. Back on Earth, President Amara Okonkwo stood at the memorial site for New Hope. The planet itself was still dead, still empty, still scarred by what had happened there. But in orbit, a massive structure had been built. 4,200,000 names were etched into titanium alloy panels that caught the light of the system's star. Each name represented a life lost, a person who would never go home, a future that would never happen. Okonkwo read some of the names aloud, her voice carrying across the assembled crowd of humans who had come to remember. Families of the victims, soldiers who had fought the war, citizens who wanted to understand what had been done in their name.